Well, hello, everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to Rattlecast number 285. We're the biggest freewheeling live streaming poetry podcast on the planet, and I'm so glad he could be here with us tonight. Our guest is going to be Stephen Gibson. He's got a whole bunch of ekphrastic poems we're going to be looking at, including his new book, Frida Kahlo in Fort Lauderdale. So we'll be looking at that in just a little bit. Before we get, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. And I know you do too, so please do click on the like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry around the internet would be much appreciated. And as we always do, we're going to start out with our Poets Respond poem. And the poet was going to be with us, had every intention of, but then he's sick, unfortunately, feeling a little under the weather and couldn't be here tonight. But Sherman Alexie was the poet today, and he has this wonderful long poem, Bad Back, which is one of the things that's just, there's so much. Well, let me read what he said in his note first. I'll just start there and then let him read the poem. But this is what Sherman said in his note. I'm responding to the hourly deluge of journalism about President Trump's authoritarian actions and ambitions. I'm also responding to the constant deluge of texts and emails from my fearful and angry friends and family. And it's true. There's a real mental health sort of emergency going on top of everything else right now. And Sherman Alexie's poem here goes into detail about that in a really disarming, honest, and direct way. It was really a delight to read. One of those poems that gripped you. As you're reading submissions, you come across these ones that you kind of forget you're reading submissions for a little bit. And that's what happened here with this poem. So let's hear Sherman Alexie read his poem. Again, it's called Bad Back. Here we go.
Bad back. Last night, in 7-Eleven, the cashier reached across the counter to scan my purchases, then grimaced and grabbed the small of his back. I know that pain well, so I said, I've got a bad back too. He sighed and said, it is the lifting. He said, I lift too many bottles and cans in the cooler. He owns the store, I think, because he seems to work every shift, just like my boss who often worked the graveyard shift with me at the 24-hour deli in 1987. I was slender in those years and a good athlete, but my back still ached. It's my long torso, I said to the 7-Eleven owner, and my legs are goofy short. I'm 6'2" standing up and 6'8" sitting down. I'm a bad lever. Then I bent slightly at the waist to give him visual evidence and laughed when that move made my back spasm. You are not old, the 7-Eleven owner said, and I am not old, but we are old. I smiled at his poetic observation, then carefully carried my purchases toward my car, but stopped first to give Jason, the homeless man, all the stuff that I'd bought for him. The Italian sub sandwich, potato chips, Sprite, and beef jerky for his dog, Lady. I don't know why Jason is homeless. He uses a wheelchair. I fist bump him, then I ease into my car and drive away. I like to help the men and women who sit outside convenience stores. I rarely have cash to give them. Who carries cash these days? Instead, I buy them mostly food and drinks. But I've also bought them medicine, toothpaste, deodorant, and various other toiletries too. But I won't buy them cigarettes or booze. I always feel hypocritical for making this tiny moral stand. Why do I make myself the judge? I haul around dozens of my own addictions. Maybe that's why my back is bad. On stage, I used to tell audiences that my spine was twisted from carrying the burden of my race. I used to say that every Indian struggles with a limp in the bones and soul. But then again, I shouldn't get too wrapped up in my Indianness. All around me, people of every kin and kind are limping. Ah, the eternal diversity of the limp. Ah, the endless variations of the bent and busted back. Last night, after I arrived home from the 7-Eleven, I saw that my friends and family had sent me dozens of texts and emails about Trump. I read a few. All the rage, doubt, and fear are justified. But I felt my back spasm again. I didn't want to feel that weight, so I deleted all of the unread messages, links, and emails. Then I lay flat on the floor and talked aloud to everybody in my life. Listen, I said, you're letting that man take hours, days, weeks, months, and years from your life. But more than that, you're letting him turn you into the worst possible version of yourself. He's a contagion, and you're coughing up blood. There's pieces of you splattered across the screens of your phones, tablets, and laptops. Yeah, I know that I was being a moralizing asshole, but the daily news is stripping the flesh from my body and soul. Yeah, I know that many people are in danger, but my solipsistic fury doesn't protect anybody. I know as a writer and an Indian writer, that I am expected to offer advice. But I have nothing but this consolation. Everything you're feeling now is what I've always felt as a reservation-raised Indian. And hey, I'm a survivor. I'm 51% intact. In this moment, as I write, I can hear the bathroom fan, but I'm going to pretend it's the roar of a mythical waterfall, that the multitudes of wild salmon are still climbing. And hey, I might as well be a brown bear fishing with my sharp claws. Look at me. I'm carrying a wild salmon in my teeth. I'm going to feast, then fall and fall into a gorgeous hibernation for at least the next hour or 3. I'm going to rub my sleepy eyes and pray that winter will quickly change into spring. I'm going to press my bad back against the earth and wait for everybody's rebirth.
Yeah, and that was Sherman Alexie once again reading today's poem on Rattle.com, Bad Back. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Stephen Gibson. So sit tight and we'll be right back with more poetry. And we're back. Like I said, today's guest is Stephen Gibson. Stephen is the author of several poetry collections, including Self-Portrait and A Door-Length Mirror, which was selected by Billy Collins as the winner of the 2017 Miller-Williams Poetry Prize. Rorschach Art Too was winner of the Donald Justice Prize, and Rorschach Art 1 came out from Red Hen Press in 2001. His most recent book is Frida Kahlo in Fort Lauderdale. Gibson, who retired in 2015, taught at Palm Beach State College for 32 years. He lives in West Palm Beach, Florida, and here he is, Stephen Gibson. Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
Good, Tim, and thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to have you. You're, one of those poets who, we've published a lot, especially in the Poet Response series. There are a lot of good poems coming our way, a lot of different forms, interesting ideas that you've got. So I'm looking forward to talking poetry today and looking at all the stuff that you do. Do you want to start out with a poem from the new book?
Yeah, I'd love to. The first poem in the book is about the gift shop. Actually, it's the last part of the tour that we made when we went down to Fort Lauderdale with another couple. And I decided that I would start the book with that. And then, of course, end with her death and the casket burial. What I found about the gift shop was that she's everywhere. She's absolutely everywhere. And it made me much more conscious of her being everywhere. And everyone has different views of Frida. And this book is really a response to her works, my view. Gift shop, Frida Kahlo. She stares at us with her affectionate monkeys, grasping her arms and neck on a food trivet. Sans eyebrow, upper lip wax, or mani-pedi. She stares at us with her affectionate monkeys. It's Fort Lauderdale's Rivera Kahlo exhibit. Diego, inflated. Frida, outrageous, messy. She stares at us with her affectionate monkeys, grasping her arms and neck on a food trivet.
Yeah, so it's a triolet, if you recognize the form, just listening. And all the poems in this book are ekphrastic poems and include the paintings for the most part. There are a few that we couldn't include, I guess, but they're mostly there. So we have all these wonderful paintings, too, by Frida. So Stephen, what can you tell us about how this book came to be? It's such an interesting thing to be taking on, Frida Kahlo, and that you could do 57, I think it is, triolets about various paintings. How did you decide to take on this project? What was the impetus for it?
Well, I was so impressed with the exhibition, and more, to be honest, Diego was there too. But I was much more impressed with hers. It seemed to me that painting after painting, and so many of them are self-portraits, were all about pain and suffering. And that made me want to know more about not only the work, but also, the artist herself. Why was she painting herself, bleeding with a thorn necklace? Why was she showing us her body with the nuts and bolts of after surgery and stuff? So that spurred my interest right there. And then another thing, I've always been interested in the visual. My first book was called Rorschach Art, and I had read years ago a book, Camera Lucida by Barthes, Roland Barthes, and he talked about the studium and the punctum, and regarding photography, and the studium is what you could find out about the work. You could read the history of it. You could read the cultural context when the photograph was taken. Those kinds of issues. But the punctum is what got to me. It's the part that grabs you, and so I was wondering, what is it about these works that, this individual painting or that individual painting of hers, what was it that was grabbing me? And of course, writing is a way of discovering it. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was that I tried, the first poem actually was about the gift shop. And then I moved on from there. I don't remember what the next one was, but that one seemed to work. And then I went to another painting and that seemed to work. Meanwhile, reading more and more about her, okay, not just my response, but also to find out the the cultural and the historical context. And then, of course, the more I read, the more surprised I was. I mean, the idea that she would have an affair with Trotsky. Trotsky shows up in my first book, the Axe Murder of Trotsky by Ramon Mercader. I had no idea that she was involved with Trotsky. Stalin was trying to show the world his long reach, and he did. And so there were so many things that, as I read about, I decided to stay with it. And I found the Triolet form workable, succinct enough, and focused enough that it kept me, it made me go back to the piece itself. So that's kind of how it got started.
Yeah, well, let's hear another poem from the book, and then we'll talk about more, because it's such an interesting, really, I mean, Frida is such an interesting figure in art history, or just human history, and then also the form. There's so much to talk about here, but let's read one more poem first.
Okay. This is the photo of Diego Rivera posing. Of Diego Rivera posing beside a giant papier-mâché devil. Diego said there was more feeling in his handshake than with most women when they were having sex. Frida knew when she married him what to expect. Diego said there was more feeling in his handshake. Women confused love with fidelity, their mistake. Monogamy was a leash and collar around his neck. Diego said there was more feeling in his handshake than with most women when they were having sex.
And that is a photo of Diego Rivera posing beside a giant papier-mâché devil. It's one of the only ones doesn't include the image, but here it is, courtesy of Pinterest at the moment. I just pulled it up. This is the photo that this is written after. And really, like, so much of the work, so evocative and unusual and fascinating, looking at Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo here with a papier-mâché devil from 1929. So, and so that gets it too. I mean, what comes out in this book is so much of the personal lives between the two, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, that difficult marriage. How much research went into the book? There was that Frida mania, I think it's been called. I mean, I only know as much as I read on the Wikipedia page before this. I knew some sort of cursory details, and then your book inspired me to read the Wikipedia page, and it's such a fascinating figure and so much going on. But we had that movie too. There's a great biography, I guess, that came out in the 80s. How much extra research did you do? And because so much of this, involves their relationship and their sort of fraught marriage, and it takes a turn in that direction for sure. So what was the research for the book like?
Well, I really depended so much, like with finding the paintings themselves, in looking at those, reading articles online. And many articles had different views of the relationship and really a kind of a power adjustment that was taking place, from early on to later on. And in Diego's world and Frida's world, she was secondary and then comes to the fore. I don't think she has an exhibit until a solo exhibit until much later on, whereas Diego, was well world renowned. I mean, he was a celebrity. He was a celebrity and was touring the States. That shifts. That shifts dramatically. And there are little tidbits that when you would read these articles, you'd find out, different things that. Would spur me to want to go to the painting and find out where in the painting that might come up, the relationship, which is why when you look at the painting like with the thorn necklace, or you see the photograph later on at the end of the book where she's in the bed where she is painting, and Diego is sitting next to her. This is a few years before she's gone, before she dies. And the relationship was fraught, with so many conflicts, and it was, I guess, in a lot of ways justified. I mean, the conflicts. You see the image of Frida, like in the movie, okay, the political woman, but the fact is, the artist and the work are different. The human being and the work they produce. I've done quite a bit of different artistic. Writing about different artists. Recently, I was doing Degas' Little Dancer, and when you read about, her name is Marie Van Gotham. The 14-year-old in that sculpture that's in D.C. She had a horrible life. She had the little statue that you see that children look up to and want to be like, the ballerina. She lived through a war that France lost against Germany, and then she lived through the Paris Commune, where 20% of the city is bombed, and they end up eating every pet in the zoo, the elephants. I mean, this is what a little girl lived through, and when you read about these things, if you want material, W.D. Snodgrass said this, and I studied with him at Syracuse, and he had I love this book in Heart's Needle and After Experience. He was writing the Führerbunker poems at the time, but he's got a book of essays called In Radical Pursuit, and he says if you want to find out sometimes what you're thinking and what you're feeling, go elsewhere. Go to, write ekphrastic. That's what he did at the time. He also said he was experiencing a writing block at the time, and that got him out of the writing block. And so, I the more I read, and I would find out little details. I mentioned her affair with Trotsky. One article talked about how she threw it up in Diego's face. Because this became a kind of like anthem for her. This was a political, expression, not one of, taking on a new lover only. Although the article said that, Trotsky was actually giddy with having that relationship with, as brief as it was, with Frida Kahlo, and so, that inspired me. In fact, that idea. Is I think the source for one of the poems about her between the curtains. That poem dedicated to Trotsky, which I don't know if I had put that in the list or not, but that's one of the poems that in reading about that came from that in particular.
Yeah, well, let's hear another poem. They're short, so we should move through a good number of them. Next, you had Frida Kahlo's painting The Deceased, Dimas Rosas, age 3.
Okay.
And here, I start out by showing everybody the painting, too, so we can, see and follow along here. Yeah, there's the painting, which is one I'm not familiar with. I mean, so many of her works are iconic, but this one was new to me.
Frida Kahlo's painting, The Deceased Dimas Rosas, age 3. Diego painted the mother cradling him. Frida painted him as he was in death. Eyelids parted. Hold a mirror. No breath. Diego painted the mother cradling him. The mother believed in prayer and sin. Frida believed in doctors, not witchcraft. Diego painted the mother cradling him. Frida painted him as he was in death.
Yeah, and so that's Frida Kahlo's painting The Deceased Dimas Rosas, age 3, from 1937, which you can see on the screen there if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or whatnot. And that's another poem from Frida Kahlo in Fort Lauderdale by Stephen Gibson. Let's talk a little bit about the triolet form, Stephen. It's a sort of a maddening form in a way, because it's so easy on the one hand. You know, you only have so many, I think 4 original sentences or lines you need, and then you kind of fill in and repeat so much. But then to have any kind of sense of movement and change, which is what's necessary. You know, if a poem is a magic spell, it's got to go somewhere, it's got to do something and transform something. And so it's so difficult with those few lines that you get sort of freedom with to make something interesting and new happen. So how do you go about approaching that trilogy form? And also, why did you choose that form to go after these paintings? I know you already mentioned that it's a short form that's easy to get a lot of work through. But why that form in particular as opposed to other short forms, and how do you approach that form?
Well, when you read other poets that you admire, and you see that they have handled the form so well, like A.E. Stallings writes amazing formal poems, and she wrote a triolet that it was wonderful poem, and I said, well, let me try my hand at it. It wasn't the first one the first time that I've done it. I have the triolet in. I think it's in Paradise, or it's in a couple of them in earlier books. And I found, yes, sometimes the poem almost writes itself, okay? The difficulty is, as you pointed out, it's got to go somewhere. And so the narrative element is what I try to bring into the poem, that even though it's a short lyric, the poem is kind of encapsulating a tiny story. And the story is my response to the work that you're looking at. You know, in the ekphrastic, you can start with describing the work itself. That's one approach, and poets do that. But you could also focus on that as a jumping off point. That is, what does it mean to you? And then even more removed from that is the idea that, well, the ekphrastic work that you're dealing with is really tapping into something that has hooked you. That is, as Barth calls it, the wound that you have to now do something about. And so that's really what I thought it was a workable form. I'd done longer works. I'd done one in a longer collection in sonnets. It was called Il Pagliaccio Mussolini, and that's actually where the Trotsky assassination poem comes in, and that's in a sonnet form in that collection that came out in the first book, Rorschach Art. It was included there. I found that it really could work. I like the repetitiveness of it, the kind of obsessiveness of it, and that too ties in with her work, I think, the obsessiveness of those portraits.
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about just ekphrastic poems generally, because you've done so many, as you mentioned, there are multiple books in the past, including this one, that are all ekphrastic. Do you think you need to write about something that compels and moves you? One of the things we do, I'm sure you've seen, is the ekphrastic challenge at rattle.com. And we have a piece up every month. There's one up right now that hundreds of people write poems about. And do you find that you know, to write effectively on a painting, do you have to have like it choose you, or can you be, you know, the poem or the painting put in front of you, like in this ekphrastic challenge? Like, do you write about only things that you connect with, or if you don't connect with a painting, are you able to find some kind of vein where you do eventually connect, and that's how the poem comes to be? So how do you do that?
I think the second one is where you set out. That is, you look at the work itself, and then it may be, and in fact, Snodgrass talks about that. There's in an interesting passage. He's looking at one of the Impressionists, and it's about, I forgot the title of the somewhere lost in my library. I have the book, but he talks about how he wasn't particularly interested in the work itself. What he was doing was he was looking for a subject to write about. And what happened was, the more he looked at the work, the more the work began to reveal things to him that on first appearance, he didn't even notice. And then what happens in this particular painting, he ends up finding the relationship between the mother and the daughter. The daughter is literally diminished to the point where she's vanishing in this painting, and the mother is like the wall emerging from the wallpaper. And his line is, "If you look closer, you'll find the key." And what you understand then is the mother is the jailer of the daughter. And there's no way you would know this just simply from looking at it at first hand. What Snodgrass was saying in the essay was, you choose the subject, but part of your obligation is to try and find out what that subject is. There may be more going on than at first glance. So I think it can be both. I think on the one hand, it's like when Barth talks about that punctum. The other thing is you select. I looked at a number of the photographs, and at first sight, they were just photographs. The one with her and Trotsky and Trotsky's wife when she helps get him to come to Mexico, and as he's fleeing Stalin. It's just a photograph. But then when you look at it and you start to see more, there's more going on there. For one thing, I didn't write about it, but Diego's not there. Diego's not in the picture. Okay, and it's because he was somewhere else. I think he was in the States on one of the tours.
So
I don't know if that answered the question.
No, you definitely did.
But I think
I'm still wondering.
I don't think it's either or. I think it's both. Yeah.
Do you ever come across a painting that you're trying to write something for and there's just nothing there? Like Absolutely. One of the things that we taught, that just going to art galleries, me and Katie love to go to art galleries. Everywhere we go to whatever galleries there are. And one of the things that's sort of, it just seems apparent to us in the same way like reading poems is apparent to us, that like some people, like some even well-known famous artists or whatever, like have the spark, they have it. There's something real, like human, drawing you in, no matter what style or genre. And some people you just walk in and look at and it feels like they're faking it. And like the whole thing, you wonder like who they paid off or how they got favors, how they got to become famous, And it feels very sort of in a weird way apparent, So it feels like some, and I don't know what the ratio is if you go to a good art gallery, but it's just different ever. It feels like people just don't really have it, and somehow they're being pretending to have it. And do you ever come across like stuff like that though, where you just don't find anything interesting in it, and you just have to give up?
Yes, and for me, it's very disappointing. Because I feel like on the one hand, I should have, gotten some, but then on the other hand, it's like sometimes it's just not, it's just not there. Mm-hmm. It's either not touching something in you, or there's something in the work itself that isn't doing it. Then that's just how it is. I find also with that at different times. I mean, I've read, for example, like when reading poetry, sometimes I'm ready for a poet, right on, and I can. But other times I'm not. 5 years later, I'll read that. I'll say, oh, I want to reread this or something, and then, all of a sudden I'm just seeing it. I'm a different me 5 years later, mm-hmm. and now maybe I'm ready for it. So it can be both things.
Yeah. Well, let's hear the next poem up.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had the lead pencil drawing of her bus collision.
Frida Kahlo's lead pencil drawing of her bus collision with the trolley. The handrail went through her like a sword through a bull. Her description of how the metal took its course. The board splintering, tapping out death in Morse. The handrail went through her like a sword through a bull. Others were amputated. Their death wasn't beautiful. arm by leg by torso were assembled in due course. The handrail went through her like a sword through a bull. Her description of how the metal took its course.
Yeah, you can see talking about that triole form, that the sense of movement there that we get in just the 8 lines, and so many of them repeating, and yet still it changes and is transformed by the end. And this, this is the main incident of Frida Kahlo's life. This trolley accident where she was so badly injured. I mean, like it says, a handrail pierced through her like a sword through a bull, and shattered her pelvis and her uterus, and broke, separated. She had displaced spinal discs, and broke her leg in many places. It was just rough. And then she ended up in the hospital and bedridden for months, which is when she picked up painting. And so that's such a key part. But so much of what she was doing as an artist was responding to that. And I don't know how much is like well known for topics like this, given how popular she is culturally, but a lot was new to me. So I got to look. I knew a little bit that she was injured, that she did self-portraits about herself. Can you tell us like just more about that story, about what happened to Frida and how much that affected her life?
Well, when you look at what she does, she has a couple of poems, Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. And these graphic, really disturbing paintings of her, expelling, a fetus. She, one of them was an induced abortion, and it actually didn't work. Okay, because that wound, it just shattered her, all the way through, and I think she was 18 years old. She was a young girl. And this is, her whole future, lay ahead of her. And she deals with lifelong suffering. Like I said in the beginning, one of the things that struck me about, a portrait is showing the world you. That's your face. That's what you're showing. And these portraits, painting after painting, she's showing us her either damaged, or overcoming damage, or compensating for damage. She has no children, but she has these affectionate monkeys on that trivet. They're hugging her. She has pets all over the place. Bonito, her parrot, that she exchanges food with, that she kisses. I forgot the name of the deer that she had, the pet deer. I write about later in the book, the one that'll be coming up. I think, yes, that comes up. I don't know if I included it in the list. On the bed, with the doll, that's the baby, that's that she could never have. So I think there was no getting away from it. In the end, she ends up having, she had polio that shortened one leg when she was a child. I think she was, preteen, maybe 5, 6, 7. And later on, she ends up having her leg amputated, and she paints the prosthesis. That's not in the book, but she paints the prosthesis. And Diego hides that leg. He hides it. She dies, and he doesn't want anybody to know about the leg. And one of the articles I read said, in trying to understand, well, why would he do that? Is that he felt it would reflect badly upon himself in his relationship with her. So in terms of that, when you said, that accident, that what that it wasn't a fender bender. It was life transforming, and in a way, pain made her an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's read 2 more poems from the book, and then we'll move on to others. But let's do like 2 back to back in quick succession. How about that?
Sure. The remembrance of the open wound. This is a kind of Yes, okay. Remembrance of the Frida Kahlo's painting, Remembrance of the Open Wound. She joked to a friend she was masturbating, which is why her right hand is hidden. The unhealed wound in her thigh, men. She joked to a friend she was masturbating. But pleasure, she admitted, had the sting. So what she regretted, she would do again. She joked to a friend she was masturbating, which is why her right hand is hidden.
Yeah. And so, the other thing that's really fun about this book is the interesting details that you pulled up from reading so much about each painting. My favorite art galleries are the ones that have a lot of wonderful descriptions about what's going on in the backstory and context for a lot of the paintings. When they do that, it's really wonderful. When they have, untitled number 2 and you get no context and just who the artist is, that's not quite as fun. And so for these to have the paintings and the images and then to have some interesting backstory really brings them to life in a fun way too. So that's another reason why it's a fun book to read. Let's look at one more before we move on.
Frida Kahlo's The Broken Column. Okay. 34. Frida Kahlo's nude self-portrait with back brace, The Broken Column. What makes you stronger will also kill you. Cracked ribs, shattered pelvis, a broken spine. The machinery's nuts and bolts never on view. What makes you stronger will also kill you. But torture upright in bed is worse supine when Diego stares and sees nothing to value. What makes you stronger will also kill you. Cracked ribs, shattered pelvis, a broken spine.
Yeah, and that's one of her most powerful paintings there. That is The Broken Column from 1944, about, 10 years before she died.
Yeah.
It's from Frida Kahlo in Fort Lauderdale, the new book of poems by Stephen Gibson. I should say at this point, if anybody has any questions for Stephen about this or anything else, leave them in the chat window on either Facebook or YouTube, and I'll pass them along. And also, if you haven't yet, please do click the like button. There's more than twice as many people watching live as have clicked like so far, and it always really helps if you click the like button to help poetry spread around the internet. So let's see. So there's a couple questions already that are really good. So Dick Westheimer wanted to know, what, if anything, do you learn from paintings about your poetics? Frida's obsession with honesty seems so consonant with good poetry.
I think there's the truth in the work, and there's the truth in reality, and they're not always absolute with each other. I think the whether it's the poem is not a biography, let's say. Okay, in other words, you may reconstruct events in a poem and shift them around in terms of time, or make an amalgam of events in order to get at a poetic truth. And it doesn't mean the poem is being disingenuous or dishonest or anything. It just means that for the poem, you're trying to be as honest and as you can be in creating that work. And I think in some respects that applies to any art. Yeah, one of the things that I discovered, I was going to say that you discovered. Now I'm talking, other people discover other things. But one of the difference between the artist and the work is something that we're constantly dealing with. Okay, one of the great poets of the 20th century, Ezra Pound. But read Pound's broadcasts, and that human being is not the one, the one that goes to St. Elizabeth's, okay, and that's not the one we remember when reading Husserl Mulberry or his collection Personae. I can't fathom the cantos, but Personae I do like. I do like much in that. But still, you're dealing with you deal with the person. It's different. And so I think you try to be as honest as you can, but you also have to be as valid and true to the work. And sometimes, it's not an absolute match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think,
No, definitely. I think that's great advice. It extends, to poetry and really any kind of creative enterprise you're trying to do. Let's hear another poem. And I think the next one up we have is Diane Arbus' Self-Portrait in a Door-Length Mirror, which is the title poem of your book of the same title. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, I'd love to. This photograph actually gave the title to the book, Self-Portrait in a Door-Length Mirror. Diane Arbus, Self-Portrait in a Door-Length Mirror. Why would I ever want to bring you into this world? To one day take your place among the ordinary misfits I view all around me and record face to face. One day in this world, they take your place and you're not even aware it's happened. But all around me, I record it face to face. Those who will survive me when I'm dead. But you're not even aware it's happened because you're just a small bump in the mirror who will inevitably survive me when I'm dead, trying to come to terms with you and her. Her, me, looking at the bump in the mirror of you, photographing it. The panty elastic lowered to define like a horizon, you from her, that I became aware of, like a twitch, a tick. I was examining a panty tear at the elastic and was going to throw them out, but didn't. That's when I felt something, a twitch, a tick. I knew somehow something was different. I was going to throw them out, but I didn't. And here you are with me in the apartment, knowing everything and nothing is different as I photograph you without your consent. Forgive me bringing you into this apartment, telling you all the things that I shouldn't, for photographing you without your consent, for not knowing why I did something or didn't, like saying all of these things that I shouldn't. Life is difficult enough from whatever view, not knowing why you shot something or didn't, like at this moment in this world, shooting you.
Yeah, and so that was, once again, Diane Arbus, Self-Portrait in a Door-Length Mirror. And that, you'll notice, is in the pantoum form. And so, yes. I'm always interested. I love formal poetry, and you're one of those poets that if submission comes in and it's formal, it might be you, which is always nice. So what draws you to certain forms and this form in particular? Do you remember why this came out as a pantoum, and how do you know what kind of form you're writing? Because you do write in so many different forms.
I was looking at the photograph of her, and one of the things I felt was she's looking at, she's early in her pregnancy, and one of the remarks that came into my head was that when I lived in the Bronx, our apartment had a door-length mirror in the bedroom just like that too, and you get dressed up and you take a look and stuff, and usually, you'd smile at the mirror and stuff. She's not smiling, she's not, and that was kind of the jumping off point for me. Why isn't she happy? Mm-hmm. And it made me think about her and the world and her life, how she ends her life too. And so I wrote, I wanted to make it a persona poem. I mean, I knew I wanted to speak in her voice. I wanted it as if she's looking at the mirror and reflecting. And that's why, I don't write many persona poems per se. But I was hearing her voice, and I wrote the first couple of lines. And then when I started the second stanza, I found I used the second line. And then a new line came, and then I used the third line, which was, and I realized I was working in the pantoum form. And I said, well, then let me just go with it. Let me just see what happens. When I would teach formal poetry to my students. I try to make it. I say, just try it out. Don't just try it. Have as many tools in your toolkit as you possibly can. My first book, Rorschach Art, there are a few formal poems. I mean, I surprised myself. I didn't realize that there were so many that were free verse in that collection. But it's a tool, and I would say, have as many tools in your toolkit. This way, when you want to try something, you have it. If you haven't tried it, you don't know it. And there are tricks to doing it. When I would teach the villanelle, I would say, write a couplet. Write something in a couplet. Now put a line in between, and now you've got your refrains. And now you can move the poem forward that way. So it was. My wife is great at all kinds of. She can do Wordle in 2 seconds. I can't do anything like that. I can't. I mean, I'm absolutely horrible. It's like there's another one. It's like strands or something else. For me, it's connections. But for me, the form starts to write itself. I can see it as I'm sitting there, and it suggests it, and so I go with it. I go with the form and see if it works.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a question here that I was writing myself from Laura B. She says, wondering how it feels to be entering the psyches of artists of different genders. Does it feel different? And I wonder about that, because we had Diane Arbus just now, and then we have a whole book on Frida Kahlo. Is there anything, how do you feel about that, about entering the mindset of a gender other than your own?
Well, I think you try to get it right. Okay, that is, I don't want to. I don't want to turn it into an anthem, or something which you end up finding out that's not her. So I wanted to get it right for the work, for the artist. If I'm thinking about like Diane Arbus, and I don't want to. I mean, think about Stieglitz with O'Keeffe. With her, she insists. She does that wonderful painting with the clam, and he says it's not a clam, and she says everything about that painting is anatomical. That's all it is. It's a clam, okay? And they have this big debate about it, the same thing with her flowers, the black iris, and all of them. He said everything was Freudian, everything was sexual, and she insisted no, she didn't want to become, I think it's the same when I write, when I'm doing that. When I was just trying to, I didn't want to turn Arbus into somebody she wasn't, but I also didn't want to turn the poem into something that that I wouldn't want. Mm-hmm. By basically turning it into a cliche or stereotype, or so I was to try more find out about the person as much as I can. Yeah.
Well, let's hear another poem. I want to make sure we get to a good number, and where time's running out a little bit. What do you want to do next?
We were talking about forms. Can I try the Sestina, the Manhattan Noir? That poem was occasioned by an absolute incident that actually happened. Okay, Manhattan Noir. Manhattan Noir. She played in a philharmonic. He was a handyman. She was trained how to hold a cello by the neck and draw a bow across its strings so that sound made listeners leave this world and find themselves in another that for the most was impossible to express. He strangled her to death backstage behind a curtain. Her disappearance from others' lives was like a curtain suddenly being pulled across in front of them. A woman who was so talented and alive. How do you express what the loss of such a gift is, they asked. Her neck was crushed. That's what people repeated to themselves when her murder was discovered. And without sound, they attended her memorial. And except for the sound of their own breathing, they stared at a stage curtain with a large photograph of her, which they themselves recognized as if they had taken it of that young woman, which showed her smiling, holding her cello by the neck. Then they left, entered the subway, and took the express uptown to parts of Manhattan. But even the express could not take them away fast enough from a sound that was only absence. He pressed down on her neck with his thumbs as he knelt over her behind the curtain until her eyes almost burst out of her, a young woman that he admitted not knowing. Family asked themselves, why? Why did he have to kill her? They themselves knew the answer. Because he could. Because to express whatever was inside him, he strangled a young woman he didn't know, but saw at times rehearsing in a soundproof rehearsal room. So he hid behind a thick curtain, hiding old lighting equipment. He grabbed her neck, he admitted to police, and couldn't believe that her neck was actually between his fingers. His fingers themselves seemed actually not to have any feeling, as if a curtain had come between them and her. It was hard to express what he felt at that moment, even as he heard the sound coming from her throat as he choked that young woman. In black dress, she holds the cello's neck, trying to express not only what great musicians themselves hear, but a sound she believes lies waiting behind a curtain in every human.
Yeah, there was a wonderful sestina. That was Manhattan Noir by Stephen Gibson. And sestinas are a really difficult form. To me, it seems it's a hard form to make sort of justify itself, or to make, and in that, I think you do a wonderful job of having those words that repeat, those refrains, the handyman, neck, or just man, neck, sound themselves, express, and curtain. And having them sort of become a refrain, even though it's a one-word refrain, is sort of a hard thing to do, I think. How do you approach the sestina as a form? What's the trick to making it work?
In the Book of Forms, I'm forgetting what's his name. He talks about the terminal medial and how the arrangement of it, the 1, 6, 5, 2, and so on. And it in a way, it's a kind of a game that you're playing. But if you're going to play a game, you don't want it to be something that's not worth it. You want to get something out of it. You want to get something out of that game. And part of that is the sestina, as it repeats, has to move forward. So it to me, I think it lends itself to narrative. You can take the sestina, and I've seen other ones that but for me, you can take the sestina and you can tell a story. Like I said in mentioning, this is straight out of. When I grew up in the Bronx, the Daily News every Sunday would have an insert in the section. It was called a crime story. I remember, there's the picture of Eisenhower after his heart attack, on the front page. But inside, it's about, some guy climbing up the fire escape to get into somebody's house, on an area, which was 10 blocks from where you lived, and so sometimes the story, it wants to be told. And when I read, I forget when I read about you see the talented young woman artist, the beauty she wants to shed to the world, and the randomness of somebody doing that, Yeah, and I didn't know her. I had nothing against her,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a profound thing to have to think about. With that sestina form, how do you pick the words? Did you write the first stanza for that, and then those are the words you used, or did you ahead of time know that those were good words to be using in the sestina?
I don't recall exactly with that one, but probably what happened was I wrote a stanza where it wasn't working, and so as the poem developed, I realized there's something that was falling down, and that it made me want to construct the form more than tell the story, and that I didn't want to do. And so I would go back to the initial stanza, and then once I knew I could move the story forward, so that the story could be told without, just simply wanting the artifice, the facade, rather than the living accommodation. That's how that worked. Sometimes the lines will come quickly, but I think just as quickly you realize when it's not working, and then you're either going to put it aside and then come back later, or you're going to go back and say, I got to, this, because whatever you start out with, that's what you're going to end with, except for the tercet at the end.
Yeah. Well, let's do 2 more poems and a couple more questions. What do you want for your penultimate poem, Stephen?
I want two. One about they're both memorials. One is to my mom, and one is to my father. So I'm going to read the memorial sonnet.
Okay.
It's in paradise. Memorial sonnet. This is for the bruised eye, the swollen lip, the blue panties torn at the elastic, the bra cup hanging out of the laundry basket, and the yellowing half slip, almost as yellowed as the girdle. This is for the intentional cosmic silence that watched like Sputnik overhead and heard her yell. This is for his psychiatric hospital visits and her court-appointed lawyer. This is for the restraining order whenever he ignored it. This is for my mother cowering in a corner. This is for my father who came home from war.
Yeah, that's such a powerful couplet at the end of that sonnet. It really sneaks up on you. That was Memorial Sonnet by Stephen Gibson. Yeah, let's see. So we had some really good questions too that we haven't got to yet. It was speaking of formal poems, Chelsea McClellan wanted to know who are some of your inspiring formal poets. So if we know Snodgrass inspired you into a lot of ekphrastic poetry, he writes formal poetry in his own right too. But who are some of your inspiring formal poets?
My favorite poet of all time, I got to meet him when I was a kid, when I was in high school, is W.H. Auden. I just absolutely thought everything Auden wrote was just sensational, and I would come upon him by accident. There's a poem, I think he did a translation of Akhmatova, Akhmadalina or Akhmatova, I'm not sure which, and it's called Volcanoes, and it's about Pompeii, and I just love that. Contemporary poets, I mean, you look at A.E. Stallings is just phenomenal, and there's a whole sequence of Barbara Hamby poems, and I forgot. I think it's I'll slaughter the title of the book, so I don't remember, but Barbara Hamby is. Denise DeHamo is another contemporary. My friend Ed Falco has a collection of poems. He's a novelist, a short story writer, but he's a fantastic poet too. And I remember years and years ago being envious of a poem he wrote about an ekphrastic poem about a photo on his desk. When you find yourself saying to reading A. Stallings or Barbara Hamby or other poets, and you say, I wish I'd written that. It worked. Yeah,
it's interesting. The poets you mentioned all sort of the southern Florida region. That A. Stallings from Georgia, but then others do Hamill from in Miami and Hamby and Tallahassee. Did you find like there's a Florida group that has an influence on you, or Florida sentimentality, or the Southeast anyway?
It's I don't think so. I mean, we've been here longer than any other place. I think what happens is that when I find a poem in a journal, you know, I try to track that person down. I try to get. I wonder, do they have a book? I won't mention who I. I once. I'm not going to mention it because maybe they're too ridiculous. But I remember I didn't know this poet's work, and I thought this is such a good poem. I'm going to write that. And then I wrote her a letter. I wrote a letter saying, keep it up. I want to see more poetry. And then I found out that that she had like 10 books, and I just wasn't aware of her work. So I think what draws me is if I see the poem itself, I'll try to and it can it can come from anyone at any time. It's I'll find poets that in the past that why didn't I read this poet? Like, why didn't I read them 10 years ago?
Well, I was at the AWP conference once, and I heard walked into a reading, had no idea who was reading, and it was a wonderful poet. And I walked up afterward and said, "Oh, you're amazing! I love this poetry." I gave her a business card. It was back long ago. We had business cards, and it was Lynn Emanuel. And I had no idea that she was like, how big a poet she was. Like, oh, you should send me poems sometime. These were great. Here's my email address. And so I felt a little embarrassed about that, but that's how it goes, I guess. So there's a great question from Shape of Soup, and this is a phrase I have to think more about, but it's interesting. He says, Stephen, would you say your poetry is ironically incidental, a convenient and useful outlet for expressing what you already crave, what you need to consume? So that's an interesting way to think about it. But what do you say about that?
Yes, I say yes. Yeah. I think I think that's part of the draw. It's I think we write about the same things over and over. And I think when we look at poets that we say, oh yeah, they're doing the same thing. Their feelings like with today's poem, when he talks about Trump poisoning the soul, in his bad back, yeah, absolutely. You're drawn to it. It's and so you are consuming it. You're feeding it. It feeds you and stuff. And hopefully in an artistic way, you want to, you want to grow from it. You want to grow from it. I mean, how many times have you, heard an expression or something and, the place is bad, but, you can make it better. Then you read a poem like, Good Bones, and you say, well, yeah, absolutely. I feel that way, so yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Well, we're about up on time. Do you want to finish out with one last poem, Stephen?
Yeah, I'd like to finish up with the last poem in the self-portrait of Dolan Mirror. This is my wife and I went on the romantic Danube river cruise, and we ended up in Nuremberg, and this poem comes out in the museum, seeing the suicide photograph of Goering. My father was a World War II vet and fought the Nazis. Looking at the Goering suicide photograph, Nuremberg Museum in 2013. The drug my older brother took made his tongue swell out of his mouth, thick as a cow's tongue, but immovable. It was either court-ordered medication or jail, with a short stretch in St. Vincent's, arranged by the cardinal. My mother was a cook for the archdiocese, knew people, and one of the monsignors had pulled. If there was a next time, it wouldn't be Ward's Island Hospital. No matter what the household conditions were or how troubled the individual, the next time would be jail. My younger brother didn't know anything. He was a child, grew up doing the ordinary neighborhood stuff, pills, weed, beer, but not, thankfully, the heroin that made his friends ill. And me, Thorazine. Let me sleepwalk through fire damage control in basic, helped carry my tray in line at the mess hall, and steadied my weapon in the one-time only drill that 46 years later I can hardly recall. But I remember this photo, Goering's lazy eye, the ampule of cyanide crushed between his teeth, not visible. I remember it in place of my father's funeral. I wasn't there. He died in Florida after electroconvulsive shock and years in and out of VA hospitals and home visits and restraining orders he ignored at his peril, and of which I have no memory at all. I remember a suitcase in a hall closet with V-mail, and this photo in magazines, Goering on his back in his cell. How strange seeing it again, here, and the black and white trial photos, and in the dock, all those old war criminals. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, another great poem and a great example of how ekphrastic, poetry can take you in places that you never expect, and you figure out when you're looking at a piece of art, or in this case, just a photograph, what, where you'll go with it and what moves you about it. And then you can explore that. It's a wonderful example of what to do for the ekphrastic challenge. We don't want to just have things that describe the paintings. We want to have your personal journey through the painting, I guess is a good way to put it. And that's a great example of that. Stephen, really fun talking tonight and sharing your book. Of course, the new book is Frida Kahlo in Fort Lauderdale. But the other poems too, really fun and great discussion. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me.
Yeah, definitely. My pleasure. Yeah, once again, that was Stephen Gibson. You can find all of Stephen's work, including his new book, which is just out from Able Muse Press. Of course, Able Muse is one of my favorite presses. Alexander Pepple does a great job there, and that's sort of where formal poetry lives, or one of the places. You can find all of that at stephen-gibson.com, Stephen with a PH, -gibson.com. Just find that there. You find all of Stephen's books, and, look forward to that, and I hope you pick one up. Now, we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week was to, here we go, write a poem that references small talk in a big way. So a pretty open-ended one, but you got to do small talk somehow, but in a big way. See where everybody went will be fascinating. That was your prompt for this week. Now, if you'd like to share a poem, and only if you have a poem to share, email it first to promptlines@rattle.com, like it's on the screen, promptlines, all one word, @rattle.com, and then find the Zoom link in the chat windows on either YouTube or Facebook. And so you'll join the Zoom, I'll pull up your poem as you read it, and we'll have a lot of fun. If you don't have a poem like that to share, all you have to do is sit right where you are, and we'll be right back. The best place to watch is YouTube or Facebook or X, because then you get to see the poems as we are reading them. But if you have a poem to share, jump on the Zoom. Try to keep it to 3 minutes max. So if it's a really short poem, feel free to introduce it a lot. If it's a longer poem, even though it's a one-page max, but it fills up the whole page, dive right in, because we want to make sure we get to everybody. We like to try to do that. So join us, and we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks so much for your patience. We got our poems editor, our associate editor, my wife, Katie Dozier, all in one here. How you doing tonight, Katie?
I'm doing great, thanks. It was fun getting to hear about art along with poems tonight.
Yeah, we love art. I love it. Obviously, we love ekphrastic poetry, doing the ekphrastic challenge for the last, 15 years or however long that's been going on. And writing just inspired by art galleries and things like that is very common to us. So really, a series of poems after our hearts, I'd say.
Yeah.
So what do you have for the prompt this week? And once again, I'll put it on the screen.
Okay.
The prompt was write a poem that references small talk in a big way. So you weren't here last week.
At the end to
at the very
announce,
end.
I was here for a lot.
I know you were. I'm not saying.
I know showed you. No, I did not.
But we didn't get to ask why you picked that topic. So where did this prompt come from before we start, I guess?
I think honestly it came because I've heard you say so many times how much you hate small talk, and then I don't think anybody says like, oh, I just love making small talk. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to think about the times where something innocuous can actually be a profound thing, or what's interesting about it, because we sure do tend to do it a lot. So why?
That's the thing about it. I know I complain about it because I can't make myself do it. But I know how important
everybody
it is.
would think that they're terrible at it, but you're like the best at small talk because you skip a lot of the
I try to get through
aspect.
it. I'm looking for the first exit ramp from the small talk.
That's what I do in poems too often.
Okay. So let's see. So you named yours small talk, I see.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Let's hear it.
Small talk. I know I'm supposed to hate it. All the smart ones do. I think of thousands of birds and how I know nothing about their odd synchronized dances. Instead of shaking my tail feather, I chirp about the weather to my neighbor, Bob. I know nothing about him, personally, of course, but I know no one looks quite as comfortable as when they agree that the sun in early spring feels nice. Our chatter, mindless as ice cubes clinking in a glass of lemonade. Our bobblehead nods synchronized like last night's rain. Our necks scan for a forecast, arch like cranes. Soon we flutter back to our own houses, mine with the green shutters and his with the white, or are they red shutters? Every dance must end. But when I'm lost in the marigolds with Bob, I forget I went outside to pick the weeds again, and even though I would admit he's nothing special, and he would call me an odd bird, it's as if the solar lights along my old path will always be lit.
Oh, that's great. And I was trying not to laugh because I think the person you wrote about may be the same neighbor that I wrote about.
I don't even. Oh, really? That's funny.
Because I was thinking about the last small talk I did, and his name is not Bob. I think you changed.
No,
the
I
name.
did change the name. It's so funny because I didn't even. You were the one who had the small talk, and then
That
I
is
was
funny.
like trying to think of a neighbor, and like we haven't lived in this house for very long, so I don't have this kind of connection that I made up in the poem with anybody. But that's
That is
hilarious
funny.
that this guy's like next
This
door and
guy's-
has no idea.
Yeah, he's got 2 poems written about
Yeah,
him.
though you sound
But
creepy.
Yeah, but it was the last time. And so you'll kind of see where I went in a similar, totally different direction, but starting with Bob. Although his name's not actually Bob, but
It's
that's okay.
Bill. So sorry.
Well, that's what gave it away. It was like, what would she pick? It was so close. Okay. Well, anyway, so this is my poem for Bob, and we went in a different direction though. This is called The Scoop. Okay. Nice day. Think it'll stick? Maybe. God, I hate this. Don't you hate this? What? Spring? This. Gestures at nothing. Talk about it. Hey, it's the social glue. Without it, we'd crumble. It's soul crushing. We all love azaleas. Why do we have to talk about it? What else would we talk about? Tell me something real, Bob. Well, I buried a cat here once. Seriously? Right there behind you in the grass. You're joking. A stray, hit by a car, I guess. Found it in the gutter. We were putting in the sprinklers, so the hole was half dug. I figured it was better than the trash. Never told anyone, but now I think about it every time I get the mail. The way the dirt flopped into its fur. There was only dirt until there was only dirt. Jesus, that's not small talk. Why tell me that? Better than the weather. Fair enough. And then it's a hyben, actually. So nothing but backfilling in the details. And that was the scoop.
A sneak attack hyben, if I might say. We weren't expecting the hyben until that
Well,
haiku.
I was thinking, how could I try to do I was trying to do like a one-act play hyben.
Yeah.
Or one scene play.
That's really funny. I don't think we've had such completely opposite poems like any week. That's really funny.
I know, yet about the same poor person.
Yeah.
He's a really nice neighbor, but he was telling me all about the
I wouldn't know. I've never spoken to him.
Yeah. But we were looking at our sprinklers that's where the whole thing came from. Imagining, Anyway, that was my poem, The Scoop. Okay, well, let's hear what everybody else has for us tonight. Let's go right to Amanda Harris.
Yeah, start off with expressive.
Jumping out the gate.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Hi, Amanda.
I was like praying, oh my God, please pick me first over and over. So this is awesome.
Oh, well, so glad to oblige.
Yeah, and it was a real honor reading alongside Sherman Alexie. That was great. Reading in this prompt line, I meant. It kind of came out. Okay. Small talk about next. 1. Love is an antidote for the spirit and a mold stripper for the walls on our eyes. Praise love. 2. I open my window like a lost albatross, looking for a neck big enough to house my ache. Breaking up with someone is that way. 3. In the cosmos that references the cosmos, my friend approaches me with a book. This should fix everything, she says, not understanding what everything is, what everything could be.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love, again, you come out with a really fast pace. So fast I was slowing the draw, getting the poem up, but I got it up at the end.
Got me beat her in
and the sections, too, work really well. So, really cool again poem. Yeah, always interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Amanda. Yeah. Great ending, as Nividi is saying in the chat. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so that was Amanda Harris with Small Talk About an X. Let's go to Dick Westheimer next.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Dick, great to see you.
Good to see you. And I love that interview. It's just there was so much and to hear triolets that worked and worked and worked and worked and moved and did all those things that, I don't know, Tim, you said they couldn't do.
Well, triolets are tough. I mean, they are. Having
lines.
to get them to move in 8 lines when you only really have, is it 3 or 4 that you get? Do you get 4
right. 3 or 4.
to change? I think 4.
4.
But yeah, so few you can change. And even worse than only 8 lines. Yeah.
And it really, I'd visited Frida Kahlo's house twice, and I wish I had been a poet then. I mean, I can just sort of visualize some of the things in the house that were so iconic about the creative process.
The Casa Azul, the blue house?
Yeah, the Blue House.
Oh, wow.
In Coyoacán. It's well, we can talk about art some other time. I have a very short poem though, and I'm not sure if it works. I struggled with this one. I know a number of folks were, really prolific with it, but not me, because I'm not that good at small talk, even though I think it's super important. So here we go. And I'll be interested in the comments if folks would help me figure out whether the title works. Pancreatic cancer. Ellie's flown 18 hours from here to Tel Aviv to visit his mother. 6 times, he says, in the last 6 months. She no longer joins the weekly Shabbat protests in the streets. Instead, she circles the bed holding a yellow sign she tangles with her IV tubes as she argues with Ellie about ghosts. Ellie wishes he could talk with his mom about the weather.
Yeah, well, I love that last 3 couplets there. There's a turn in that really works well. Thanks for sharing that, Dick. It's always a pleasure.
And I've been binging on Mike White poems and other like short forms. Can I get it under 50 words? Can I get it under 50 words? And it is a real challenge. I think what you discussed in Critique of the Week was really important.
Yeah, it was a great critique of the week. It was.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
Go back and watch that if you guys missed it.
It is something. So you think 50 words is kind of I never stopped to count, but that's like a good number, you think?
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I mean, obviously you write a poem that works, but that's sort of what I was thinking is can I do what Mike White, or can I make a poem that moves and ends and surprising and inevitable in 50 words? So
yeah. Well, I do wonder if Mike knows that we talk about him so much. I mean, he was on. If you can go back and look at, I think it was in the 70s maybe episodes, but
That sounded like it was in the 1970s. You've been doing the show for
doing it for a bit, for a spell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing as always, Dick. Always such a pleasure.
Thanks.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Dick Westheimer with pancreatic cancer. Next, we'll go to let's go to Carla Schwartz.
And my piece that I'm going to read to you is fairly short, and I also submitted it for the Poets Respond, but obviously there was a better poem this week, much better, and it's a Haibin, and it's called Radio Silence. I can say with almost 40% certainty, it's going to rain today, or a 20% chance of snow, or it's going to snow 0.6 of an inch, or 6 inches, or the sky will be clear and blue. A forecast more accurate than my own weather, cloudy with a chance of tears, gusts of smiles up to 40 per minute, thunderous laughter all day long. That is, until they shut down the radios, and then the world that guides my daily out the door stolen from me. Even then, I'd listen to the radio, hoping to hear something true. But now, 100% chance of tears. Science overrated, even the weather forecast. Fake news.
Yeah, great poem. I really like the topic, especially. It's a topic close to my heart because it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much
Thank
for sharing
you.
that, Carla.
Thanks, Carla.
Yeah, it was inspired by the government shutdown with NOAA and everything. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. Well,
All
thanks
right.
so much for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you all. Bye.
Yep. That was Carla Schwartz with Radio Silence. Let's go to. I saw Nivedita left a comment. Let's get to Nivi before. Yeah, let's get to Nivi next before she's got to go back to work. Being during the day where she is. Hey, Nivi, are you there?
Hey Tim, hi Katie. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, great to see you.
Great to be here. I just got probably the last 20 minutes of the interview, so I have to get back to that from the beginning in the evening after work.
Yeah, it was a great one with so much to watch too. So those just listening later, make sure you come and check the actual YouTube stream because there's so many cool paintings and
I know,
things that he was talking about.
the portion that I heard was brilliant, so I can't wait to go back and
That was great.
restart the whole thing again.
So what do you have for us this week?
Like everybody else, not for small talk, but I do realize the importance of it. And as always, I have a small poem. It's called Weather Reports.
Great.
Weather reports. The heat is unbearable, she says, fanning herself with a napkin. I nod, sip my coffee, watch how the world folds itself into harmless observations. A man at the next table complains about the rain last week. Someone laughs, says, at least it's not snowing. And just like that, we pretend we are untouched by loss, by longing, by the weight of all we do not say.
Yeah, it really captures the problem with small talk, I think, in that poem.
Does. Wow.
And I was thinking this week, is the definition of a poet someone who hates small talk?
Uh-oh.
Like, could you say
I
that?
don't know. I feel like I convinced myself that I don't hate it in the poem. Like I
Yeah.
set out, and I'm sure next week I'll
Yeah.
feel differently.
Next time
but-
you have to actually. You
I don't
stole,
know, I just had
you
to,
stole
like-
my small talk example. That's a little. That's. I mean, you couldn't even think of your own small talk, and that you
But
love
I
small
came to
talk.
the conclusion that small talk really binds us as a community,
really
and
does.
and also it pits us against nature. So it puts us in the like nature or
Yeah.
we are a community, and we have battling this weird element called
Yeah.
nature.
It also it reminds me of primates picking bugs off each other. They're like. Grooming to bond.
Yeah.
For, that's all. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
this is
scratching
all we
itch.
have.
Yeah, it works. All right. Well,
But
anyway.
it's needed. You're right. Small talk is something I think that's the thing, that's the glue that holds everybody together, at least initially, until you
Yeah,
find
it
things
definitely
that
is.
are
Then you
common
get
and-
into the deep stuff that poetry's supposedly about anyway. Yeah.
Should
Well,
be about anyway. No,
okay.
that's
Well,
great.
thanks so much,
Thanks,
Nibby. Always such a
Nibby.
pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Katie. Have a good evening.
Yep. Have a good
Good
day.
day.
Yeah, that was
Thank
Nibby
you.
Karthik with weather reports. We have some first-time callers,
Oh,
I
great.
believe. Let's go to, where did I see? Beth Heller. Hey, Beth.
Hi. Am
Hey.
I there?
You are? Yeah, great to
Yeah,
see you. So
hi.
first off, where are you calling from?
Just outside of Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Well, so glad you found us and you're sharing something. What do you have?
Well, I've got a poem that, let's see if I can find it. Sorry if I'm not fast enough on the draw here.
Oh, no problem.
So I just this poem is it's a work in progress. And I've found the help on the prompt lines, which was really great, and
great.
some and then a friend from another poetry group way back in the day. So I'll just read it instead of jabbering.
No, that was great.
So-
Yeah.
Thanks.
Iran silences women, and I worry we are next. Women forbidden to speak is quiet brutality. Nothing is said in the kitchen. No chatter, marrying clatter of dishes and knives. No wives talking unless any man gives the word. A toddler on the hip can reach a finger to his lips and say, "Mama, hush." And she can only brush her hair, cover her face, mouth rebellion with her eyes. Tears choke, strangling while throats close and open quick as bird wings, fast as fear-cloaked breath, to whisper comfort song, quickly smothered between sunrise and dark. Locked vocal cords as surely cut as wrists in the bath, silence ringing across the tile.
Oh, really cool. Yeah, such an important topic. Iran silences women, and I worry we are next. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that,
Thanks.
Beth. Yeah.
Hope you come back soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to see new faces. I love
Yeah.
it. Thanks so much.
Especially cool glasses. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
partial to
definitely.
cool glasses.
She
I
is.
have a
Yeah. Well,
weakness.
why don't you wear your cool glasses?
Because it's harder to see from here.
Yeah.
With this screen.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Contacts work better for me and function.
Okay. Well, I do love your glasses.
I wear glasses a lot. Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Beth. It's really a
Thanks.
pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right. Yeah. So that was Beth Heller with Iran silences women, and I worry we are next. And I think Rachel Grieve might be a first-time caller. She's been on so much, in the chats and things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if she's been on to share a poem or not yet. Hey, Rachel, you're there.
Hey,
Hi.
am I on?
Yeah,
Right.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, great to see you.
And I don't know if this is one of my better poems, but I feel like the news responded to this poem.
Mhm.
So I started writing it, and then I saw a news story that Finland has just had the first permanent storage of nuclear waste. And this was in this poem, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
you got to be kidding me. So
Yeah, so prompt poem and a poet respond too. Interesting.
yeah, the news responded to me, though I didn't respond to it. So.
You made it happen. Well,
Nice.
make something good happen next.
Even better.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is called networking after the plenary. A logistical miscalculation during the snack break. I now have a plate of cheese and honeydew held uneatable in one hand, an equally unopenable can of Sprite in the other. And in the other hand, that third eye of hands, flounders a conversation with my former thesis advisor, so say something intelligent. Hands off the idea reel, generalities spool out about her nuclear waste review board work, while the words Yucca Mountain escape me, having leaked away with a very short half-life and higher than anticipated porosity. I fault the distraction on the plate soda hands for my nomadic thoughts. We agree to agree that intractable NIMBY keeps the waste homeless. So she tells me instead about her parents in San Francisco, aging in the 2-bedroom bungalow that they bought in the baby boom for $20,000, now taxed at $1 million. Her parents, who recently chopped down a tree with no rings, a tree that for 40 years tapped that eternal water supply, the septic system, a tree that now has no apparent age. It seemed like a metaphor for America. And after all, Achronological sewage trees may be the most interesting item of that 3-day conference. In any case, it's the story I'll tell a decade later in another mingling break, standing with hands full of nothing, trying to think of something intelligent to say about septic drain fields. It's not really worth mentioning that the uranium is still homeless.
Oh, really interesting. Yeah, great turn in that last line there. Yeah, really.
I love
neat poem.
the line that, can you scroll down again? I want to compliment this line because I really liked it. Standing with hands full of nothing. That's really great. I'm like, that's exactly how I feel when I'm somewhere awkward with a group. Like, what like, what am I
What do
doing?
I do?
Yeah,
I think that
really
was like
good.
the first line I wrote.
That's a great line. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It
Like that
really,
one.
really captures that feeling of
Yeah,
talking
it
at a
does, yeah.
conference or whatnot. Yeah.
Oh, I also want to say I was so excited to see you guys are in the Woodlands. I lived in Spring when I was like little.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Wow.
neat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
really
neat.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we really like it here.
Yeah, we do. We love it. Where are you now, though? I forgot to ask.
Madison, Wisconsin.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
neat.
Well,
Great.
great. Yeah, well, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for all the contributions, too, and the chats and
Yeah,
stuff. It's been great.
thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
Ah,
Great.
thanks so much.
Thanks.
Yes, that was Rachel Grieve with networking after the plenary. Lex, let's go to Carolyn Wright, another first-time caller, a familiar name to me. Carolyn does a
Wow.
whole lot in poetry. It's great to have you on, Carolyn.
Oh yes, thank you. I didn't know I'd even end up here. I'm so happy to have finally found the Rattlecast.
Oh, that's so great.
And
How'd you
this
find
is
it, by the
first
way?
one I've attended, and I, because I know Stephen. Thank you
okay.
so much, Stephen, for your work. Of course, I know your book Frescoes very well, published by Lost Horse Press, I think in 2010. But Stephen has had so many books, and that one also had a lot of ekphrastic work of Italian Renaissance painters. But in honor of the triolets tonight, I'm going to read 2 triolets from my most recent book, which is called Masquerade, a memoir in poetry, and it's got this wonderful cover, which looks like New Orleans meets Fillmore West in those wonderful posters from the 60s.
Well, very cool. I should note this is the prompt lines are for poems after the prompt, but we'll allow it since this is a poem from Rattle. So I think that's
okay, because I
that's
think
really
there
fun
was
too.
some, I mean, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
These are 2 triolets, and they are actually ekphrastic in that they are describing those little dune shacks that exist on basically in the dunes of what is it, near Provincetown in Massachusetts on Cape Cod. And the prompt, the thing that started it was a quotation from Lester Walker, who is the author of The Tiny Book of Tiny Houses. And the line from his book is, snuggled in between 2 small glassy dunes facing the ocean. You should have the poem. I send it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead and read
very
it.
good. 1. We make love only once in the dune shack. Our reflections stroke each other in the mirrors. The pot-bellied stove by the bunk bed glowing black. We make love only once in the dune shack. Atlantic winds rattle the French doors. Sand drifts against us on the bolsters. We make love only once in the dune shack. Our reflections stroke each other in the mirrors. And then the second one, which is a reverse mirror image. Let's say we never made love in the dune shack. We kissed and walked away. Dunes glassy around us. We gazed out to sea. We never looked back. We tell ourselves we never made love in the dune shack. We stopped short where the weathered driftwood found us and turned away in the lee of the dune grass. We never made love, we say, in the dune shack. We kissed and walked away, the dunes glassy around us.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for sharing that. To be
that
honest,
was
the
fun. Thank you
triolets
very
on
much.
Dune
I
Shack.
appreciate it.
Yeah, those are when people ask for like what triolet is. There's 2 from Rattle that I pull up, and it's triolets on a Dune Shack, which is a great one, and then that triolet for Leica, the first dog in space.
Yes.
And so two
and
really
that's
great
true. This
ones we
one
published.
was this poem was published in Rattle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
it's
really
great.
appreciate that. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Well, thanks so much for coming on,
Yeah.
and I hope you come back like next week. We'll figure out what the prompt is, and then
Yeah.
and write something and come back. Yeah.
Write a
it.
tree of life for it,
thank you.
perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I definitely
Yeah.
want to make this a regular occurrence. So.
Yeah. Well, I hope
Great.
so. Thanks for
Great
being
to
here,
see you.
Carolyn. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was Caroline Wright with poems from Rattle, Tree Lays, and a Dune Shack. What issue that was? Maybe it was 3 years ago, I guess. Yeah. But thanks for sharing that, Carolyn.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Let's go next to where are we? I wanted to go to Jeff Stumpo again, who come back. He was last week's Poets Respond poet. Comes back with a prompt lines poem. Hey
Yay,
Jeff,
we
how you
like
doing?
that.
Yeah, we gotta appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the only things to say about this are I wrote it at about 2 o'clock in the morning, the night that the prompt dropped,
Nice.
because I got kicked out of bed for thrashing in my nightmares,
Oh.
and then
That's rough.
submitted it at like 3:51 a.m. It's a villanelle. My marriage is actually just fine, but this one is not.
Great.
50th anniversary. Little words dripping, literal persons. They settled for a lack of class. They were always mean, toothy and loose-toothed. No metaphors bent, they reflected weather, work, mass. Little worlds dripping with little poise and repetitive breakfasts and monthly rent. Their love for each other was rather crass. They were always mean. To the ends of the earth, they said, but never meant, asked if the other had refilled the easy pass. Littered the world with insipid points, not in hand, they were friends, if friendship equals love's impasse. They were always mean to the end. Committed with neither heart nor head, they let the little minutes pass. Little words dipped in little poisons. They were always a means to the end.
Oh yeah, really great villanelle there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Impressive that you wrote a villanelle at 2 a.m. also.
Yeah.
Say.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Jeff. Yeah, really
Thanks.
wonderful. Yeah, it was Jeff Stumpo with a 50th anniversary. Yeah. Let's go to Maro Dowdle next.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
Hey,
How
Mara,
are you
great to see you.
feeling?
How are
You're
you?
recovering.
Still recovering, but I'm getting there. I'm
Good.
getting there. I have a smaller bandage this time, so that's good. It's
Yeah,
progress.
Great.
definitely. The
Progress.
right, the right
Yay.
direction.
Mhm.
Yes. So I really enjoyed this prompt, and it's just always a joy to do it. It's such a good exercise, and I just love seeing what comes about. So here you go.
Great.
What my patients gave me. When we worked together, small talk was a dance on the edge of a trash compactor. Within seconds, we'd lurch in, begin digging through dirty diapers, used condoms, all the maggots. Conversations literally like this. Hi, I'm Morrow. It's nice to meet you. Hi, I'm Mike. I tried to kill myself last night. Or, I love the early spring weather we're having. Too bad the government's planning to kidnap me. Visits were supposed to last 15 minutes. No time to adjust to cold water on the swimming pool steps. They'd show me pictures of grandkids while admitting they'd used too much Xanax for their panic attacks. They'd show the new tattoo over razor wounds. If they sat quiet, I could speak softly to loosen the heart's vice. Then they'd say they never felt right since they were little and their sister died, since that neighbor man touched them. We'd open the coffer of tender viscera. Shame disintegrated in gentle acid, fell like meat off a bone. I was a hole in an oak where they could whisper the terrible and sacred. Between us, the shortest synapse to what was most vulnerable. Now I struggle at birthday parties and private school events. The other parents' tight smiles, their chat about best summer camps, winter breaks in Paris. I ask them how they're doing, but they never really tell. I wish I could be an inquisitor, make them dish the fears crushed deep in their designer purses. I miss the crack addict who'd been homeless in Vegas and cried each time about losing her children. I miss her lack of reticence. If I told these parents about her, they'd call it too much information, a story so sour it should not be spoken, or maybe just life too honest for their taste.
Oh, yeah, another wonderful poem. Thanks so much.
So
It
interesting,
draws us
Laura.
in really
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing that. Yeah. It was Maro Dowdle with What My Parents Gave Me. Patience gave me, sorry.
It's okay.
It's a little
It's a little
distance
small
on the
on
screen.
there.
We have to back up.
Yeah.
To get us both on the camera.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Tom Barlow next. I don't know have you shared a poem before, Tom? I know you're always around doing stuff, the chats
It's been quite a while, but I usually have a problem writing prompts, but this one caught something. But as Monty might say in Monty Python, now for something completely different.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it. And I really did enjoy your poems on the Critique of the Week on Friday. That was really good stuff and a lot to chew on.
Yeah, so interesting
Okay.
to look at those and wanting to talk about Mike White poems because of it. That's obviously influencing a lot of people.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great session from my perspective. It really helped. This poem is titled "Say What?" After 30 years of marriage, my wife has taken to speaking more and more softly. "Your fly is open," she whispered at the breakfast table just this morning. I was listening through the small end of my grandfather's ear trumpet as she said, "Don't stick your cereal spoon in the marmalade." And "I wish you would call my mother Her Majesty." Watching me heap sugar onto my honey oats, she muttered, "You're committing suicide by cereal." As I chewed, I thought I heard her say, "Please don't use the kitchen towel to wipe your hands." And "For God's sake, quit introducing me as your first wife." When I finally replied, "Yes, dear," speaking through the small end of the ear trumpet, my words were so magnified or amplified, they launched a water spout there in my cereal bowl, which quickly spun away, sending coffee spewing, pulling dishes into the air, tearing down sheets of the wallpaper, raising the hallway carpet, knocking my Barca lounger topsy-turvy, blowing the front door into the street, and our cat Muggsy, he ended up in the neighbor's pool. So now they're both giving me the silent treatment. Or maybe not. She's taken away my ear trumpet, so it's hard to tell.
That's great. Well, I love the humor in that, Tom.
That was really
So many
funny,
great
yeah.
lines. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for allowing me.
Yeah. That was Tom Barlow with Say What?
I was wondering if you were going to be like, say what? That's how you have to say the title.
It is. I think you have to. All right. Well, thanks so much, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I hope you get a good prompt poem again sometime soon.
Yeah.
It's great to
come
see
back
you.
soon.
Let's go to Laura Berg next.
Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, Laura. Great to see you.
Um, I have just a try at a poem. What came to mind was this volunteer work that I do teaching English as a foreign language for newcomers. Okay, so small talk. Looks like rain. Such a cute puppy. How about that game? Today we are role-playing small talk, pretending we've met at a bus stop. Be positive, I remind my class. Know the taboos. Religion, politics, money, sex, death, what's left? And who decides what's taboo? We discuss. Are taboos different where you're from? I remember to share a few idioms. Rules are made to be broken. Speak from the heart. So which will it be today, small talk or speak from the heart? I ask this half joking, hoping the vote will go one way, but the hands are evenly divided.
No, I love the use of all the idioms there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to do.
Clever.
And, yeah, clever. Thanks so much for sharing that, Laura.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was Laura Berg with Small Talk.
Hey, good title, too. I
Yeah.
can relate to that title.
All right, let's go to Lisa Seidenberg next.
Great. Hi.
Hey, Lisa.
I hadn't done a prompt for a little while, but last Sunday, last weekend, a kind of strange thing happened. So Sunday night, I thought I got this. So here it is.
Great.
uh, it's called "On Finding a Dead Owl."
Interesting. Yeah.
Thought it was a discarded winter hat when I found the mound of twisted fur in my front yard. Bending, I see the claws waving lifeless on the upended body of an owl. It looked like it just fell over and died. Damn it, because I like owls. I didn't examine it up close as I thought it might wake up and scare the crap out of me. But owls don't take naps on the ground. That evening, I am at an art show and disturb the small talk chat of this and that. Wasn't this show so much better last year? Everyone looks grateful for my dead owl story, an odd event with elements of mythology and mortality and the unknowables of nature. One said, "Don't touch it. It might have avian flu." Another insists, "A dead owl is a dark omen, a harbinger of a misfortune to come." And a third, "Call an agency to test it." Frankly, I hoped a scavenger of the night would turn it into carrion. That would take care of the matter, so I wouldn't have to. When I checked in the morning, the owl was there, nestled in an earthen cradle of brittle leaves, not yet thawed from winter. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the turn into nothing happening. You know,
Yeah.
it's something you don't expect in a poem, actually. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
That nothing happens?
Well, nothing, you know, the owl still being there. I expected
Yeah.
it not
Oh.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did dispose of it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That must have been really unpleasant. I love owls too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But you
Bye-bye.
honored the owl in the poem, so there's that.
I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely did. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. Yeah, it was Lisa Seidenberg with On Finding a Dead Owl. Let's go to Mike Bales next.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Hi.
A quick forward. I kind of view grocery stores. I work at one part-time to supplement Uncle Sam's stuff. I feel it's kind of a microcosm of society. I feel it's a hotbed of small talk, too.
Yeah, it definitely is.
This poem could have been a Pulitzer Spawn poem, too. It's called Grocery Line. The cashier asks, "How are you? Did you find everything you want?" The customer says prices have gone up and eggs are too much. Others in line talk among themselves, asking if the sun will shine and when will winter end. The cashier and bagger talk with each other to make time pass. The produce clerk says fresh as he fills coolers, while a college student says, "We're in a trade war," stirred by words leaders say as they stare at the walls we made. The president proclaims progress and freedom, and our best days are yet to come as he parcels the country we know and love. It's up for sale. Faceless, we wander countless aisles as melodies without words play.
Oh, yeah, great capturing the small talk there, too, Mike. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mike.
yeah, it reminds me of some trips to the grocery store by myself, too. All right, thanks, Mike. Let's go next to Chelsea McGlynn.
Hello.
Hey, Chelsea, great to see you.
So I wasn't going to read tonight because I am overtired from camping this weekend. I have to do a camping training for a Girl Scout.
Oh, that's great.
To take them camping, I have to go camping myself to learn how to do it. So this poem was half written in my head on the way home from the camping trip.
Oh, great.
And the title starts with, I feel like, a common small talk among poets. What's your favorite poem? You do not have to be good, Mary Oliver. The first time I read that line, it felt like a slap in the face. I, who had spent my whole life being good and doing good, or feeling ashamed for not being good enough, or doing enough good. And when I look at this country, Mary, I want to shake you myself. Surely we need more, not less goodness right now. Why give them another excuse to be selfish? I saw a bumper sticker that said, "But what if I want to drag my soft animal body through the desert repenting?" It's hard to tell what I want. I went to a training this weekend to learn how to teach my Girl Scouts to camp. not because I wanted to, but because I knew that if I didn't, no one else would. I already knew how to light a fire instead of a tent, but I learned how to replace the Lord with the world in every grace and song from my Christian summer camp days. I asked one of the leaders what kept her volunteering long after her own girl grew up and moved away. I've always been drawn to serve, she said. We made small talk all weekend long. How old is your troop? What are their summer plans? What do you do if a girl won't stop talking all night long? We did not talk of despair, except when we couldn't get the hang of tying a bowline. I helped one woman light her very first fire and showed another few how to build a log cabin for their flames. Oh, Mary, I know the world's been good to me, even though it doesn't have to be, even though I don't have to be.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I love the frame of the Mary Oliver around it, but then also all the details about the camping and
definitely.
the experience. Really interesting.
We're trying to sell Girl Scout cookies today, so I feel the Girl Scout is unsuccessfully.
It was a rough one. I guess.
It was a rough sales day.
Tougher after many boxes have been consumed.
I know, 'cause it's like the end of the sales season, and this is the first time Lizzie's ever sold cookies, and I didn't make it to selling cookies when I was little, and I'm going to rethink the strategy for next year.
Yeah, you got to be fast out of the gate and then coast.
But the
rest
camping
of
and Girl Scouts, like she loves going camping and Girl Scouts. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
so.
it is a great organization.
It is.
We
She
really
loves
enjoy
it. It's like her favorite thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Chelsea. Both for the poem and for doing that.
Yeah, for doing that.
Yeah.
I have kind of some mom guilt. I have not done the same. So, yeah, that's nice of you.
All right. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thanks.
Good night.
Chelsea McGlynn with What's Your Favorite Poem? I think we know. Next, let's go to Tina Dennett-Claw.
All right, so I'm trying to get myself more organized so I'll be quicker.
Well, good. Yeah, you're here. Great.
Oh, good.
Yay.
Thanks, Tina.
I only have to have 3 windows open. So this, unfortunately, is another long one. I don't know why I started just doing long ones. And my husband's on his way to Starbucks, so he'll be gone for a little while. So, is there such a thing as small talk? Always at the wheel on long road trips, Dad told us amazing stories. How combustion engines work, why the sky is blue, what thunder and lightning really are. When I was a boy, Aunt Ginny told me, and your Uncle Bob, that thunder is just a giant in the sky rolling potatoes into his cellar. What's on the outside of the universe, Dad? We don't know yet. Maybe someday. Oh, but someday we will. Gail pulled my grandmother's melamine plates from under the suds, one after another, wiping each with a red waffle cloth, then stood them up between vinyl tines in a coated wire dish drainer. I dried each plate in turn with a flour sack towel and stacked them in the cupboard above. Gail was the wife of my mother's cousin. She wore flat leather shoes and dark narrow slacks under a plain button shirt. With soft red curls and pinkish skin, she looked as Irish as her old cowboy husband. They had a ranch in Wyoming. When Bud works the cattle, I feed the hired men midday. There are too many for the kitchen, so we set up long tables in front of the barn. I make sheet pans full of buttered yeast rolls, potatoes, corn off the cob, and I fry 6 chickens. Musky with sweat, manure, and dirt, that hunger rowdy crew always made short work of lunch. Grandma leaned towards me as we sat in the middle of her gold and black 7-foot couch. It was long enough for her tallest boy to lie down, stretched out. Sitting together, we looked through ring binders full of old family photos and documents. Her mother's death certificate listed sepsis from a leg wound. Do you know why all these families had so many kids? I did not know. So she whispered, no TV. Without small talk, how would I know my people? I got through almost the whole poem. How would I have stories to tell? And I'm sorry that, thank you. I'm sorry that I couldn't, my email wasn't working. I couldn't send you my when I turn things around. Thank you to Nancy for suggesting I switch things around.
Oh,
So,
well, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Tina.
Great family story. Really appreciate hearing it. Thanks for sharing
Thank
it. And the
you.
no TV made us laugh too.
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
Janet
oh, my
saying,
grandma. Yeah, you're going to hear more of her orneriness. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Tina. Yeah.
Right.
That was Tina Deniclaw with Is There Such a Thing as Small Talk? Okay, let's go to Brian O'Sullivan next.
Hi,
Sorry about that.
Brian.
Hey, yeah, great to see you.
It's great to be here. Well, this is a little long, so I'll start it. It's called Small Talk at the Pearly Gates Pub. Or Small Talk up to the divine level. So how you been? So how have you been? God asked Lucifer, giving him a little side eye. Making a living, keeping warm, said the light bearer, visiting from lower out of nowhere, or hell, as you may call it. He was rubbing his new side eye. You know how it goes, another day, another lie. He looked at the spear he was holding. Got a light? Lucifer asked, and God said, damn right, let it be. And Lucifer's destined spear was lit. He coughed. So I hear the end is near, Lucifer said quite casually. God laughed. You'll see when the wheat is raised over the chaff. Lucifer shrugged, grimaced, and quaffed his cup. Down there, your humans say the way up is the way down, he said, lips twisted. So Heraclitus said, and so you'd wish it, God replied, and maybe so. I called you here to thank you. Lucifer looked appalled. To thank your arch rival? Lucifer's lips quivered. As if the sea could be rivaled by a river, God said, and laughed. The other day, I saw a boy filled with promise listen to your raven's caw. He succumbed to their temptations and lost it all, lost everything when he got hooked on fentanyl. But his friends and family led him back to greater joy than he could have known if he hadn't first cratered. So you see, you are playing your destined part in the plan. Oh yes, said Lucifer, smirking. Evil is in the center of the plan.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I love when your humor comes through in the poems, Brian. Yeah, those are the best. Those are great.
You just have such a great imagination.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's so fun to hear what you come up with every week.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know where that would go.
That's the point, right?
Yeah, that was great. And the rhyming couplets, like I didn't notice that for so long. Like halfway through the poem, I was like, wait a minute, there's a rhyme.
Great music. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for sharing, Brian.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was Brian O'Sullivan with Small Talk at the Pearly Gates Pub. All right. Next, let's go to Hemet Malik.
Hi.
Hi, Hemet.
Hey, Hemet. Great to see you.
Hey. Thank you. You too. I feel like this needs to be an after poem, but I don't remember which poet on the Rattlecast you interviewed did something like this. So maybe you'll remember when you see
After
it.
the Rattlecast.
Out of 200 and something.
Yep, we'll figure it out.
Shelf life. Nice dress, he breathed. A little too humid for first words to a stranger. A little too close for his scent to not breach her lungs. Without moving, her eyes scanned for exits from the car park, silent in its underground hold on her neck. Something happens when tomorrow rips to its last few threads. Her back arched, pushing out her chest. Her right hand rose to her hip. Leading with her chin, do you think blue suits me? In her best bar lilt. He looked through blue to her skin, to the silver lines on her curves, to the way her thighs were tensed. He must have seen the quiver of the down on her arms. But there is no man, no car park. She's wearing jeans and a brown t-shirt, the child seat digging into her hip as she straps in her 2-year-old daughter, howling in her mother's driveway, after orange almond cake, and aloe for the heat rash, and advice on how to stay with her husband. Everything will be okay, honey. Hope she sleeps tonight. But her daughter doesn't sleep that night, because she doesn't have a daughter. She never wanted children, and she never believed he could leave her and their unblemished, languid life of reading together in the evening, memoir for her, war history for him. and walking their pug on the beach in the mornings and trying new recipes to jazz on Sundays. Yet here she is, looking at the empty shelves on his side of the wardrobe. But there is no wardrobe, no husband, no recipes, just a woman staring at the pantry, wondering what to make today from these empty shelves.
Yeah,
Wow.
really great turn at the end of that one. A
that was
powerful
really,
poem.
That was
Yeah.
so powerful and so different in its structure than I think I've ever seen before, and how it moved back. And every time you took an element away, I was still surprised somehow too, even though that's what was happening. Wow.
So someone on the Rattlecast did that, one of the poets you interviewed, but I just can't remember because I've been jumping around through the old ones. Anyway, maybe I'll find it.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Yeah, really great poem.
Yeah,
Hemet.
that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
There was Hemet Malik with Shelf Life. Let's go to Audrey Friedman next.
Hi.
Hey, Audrey. Yeah, great to see you.
Oh, good to be here. Okay, another original title, Small Talk.
Yes. Yes. We've got a club tonight.
It's a working title. I don't give a rat's ass about the bargain you scored on the Ponte pants at Saks, or whether you chose the correct size, or your chatter about the veining on the new quartzite slab recently installed on your kitchen island. I don't give a flying fuck about how much you need me to find and how much you need me to help you find a carpenter to lower your bar stools during this reno project, because you don't know how to use technology and can't be bothered to learn. So you ramble on, and much like on a vintage LP, the needle gets stuck like the tires of a heavy old truck in between the walls of mud, outlining the ruts on a dirt road. At least on the old 33 RPM, I can lift the arm or turn off the power for a needed reprieve from the crackling noises of the stylus skipping from track to track on the damaged disc.
Yeah, that was really great. So creative and fun.
Yeah, that
thanks
was
so much
really
for sharing that, Audrey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Katie
Now I'm
was-
back to your side of hating small talk.
Yeah, you were stifling.
I know. It
yourself
was
the
just
whole
so
time.
funny. I love the veining of the countertops. Like, these are things people actually talk about.
I know. It's true.
I mean, and I like interior design. It still is boring.
Yeah.
I only would make you listen to
All right. Thanks so much, Audrey. That was fun.
Thanks, Audrey.
Yeah, Audrey
Was fun.
Friedman.
And a great delivery, too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Audrey Friedman with Small Talk. Let's see. Next in line.
I can't help but think how lucky everybody that gets the small talk with the Prompt Lines crew is lucky. Like the people that are seeking us out. Like, of course, everybody's trying to small talk us. We're pretty cool.
That's definitely true. All right. Well, let's go to Kimberly Gibson Tran next.
Oh, hello. There I am.
There you go. Yeah, great to see you.
Hi. Okay. So my education is as a linguist, and my specific study was in linguistic pragmatics, which is like the idea that the words we use, the sentences we say, it's not actually what we're saying. So you're using words, but you're communicating, or your meaning is not exactly what's on the page or in the conversation. So I thought about that with this, and I think there's even small talk in close relationships. But what's fun in my close relationship, my marriage, is that often just like a throwaway small talk statement can easily turn into an argument. And so I had a little bit of fun with that. And but the idea of what are we really saying here?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so here's my poem. My husband says all the stars we see are dead. He's wrong, I laugh. There is no way to know which have burned out, and for what ages we wait to know. This slow light cannot always be a blast, a supernova. Yet he's so sure, as sure as I used to be about pronouncing the word chimera. Language, subject as anything to science, is full of strange and stranger histories. But what I know in the soft glow of the chimenea logs amid a landscape of rolling Texas hills and winding stars is that I like his mad attempt at romance. Earlier at dusk, we hiked the yellow grasses and stared as our bright orb gently moved its nuclear heat to the other side of the world. Every night is supernova, chimera, and when we are wrong, we are most true to self, feeling that fundamental chaos. What we know, riddled with holes shot into heaven, seems molten into soul, impossibly real. And he is telling me right now our lives are a flash, and I am saying the light takes a long time.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Great ending,
yeah,
especially.
great ending. Yeah. I mean, like the beginning was like it was hard to think the ending could live up. And
I
then
know,
it did.
and then it did, and just when you kind of allowed enough time to forget about how exactly it started, we go back there in like an elegant, pretty way. Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Kimberly. Yeah, that was
Thank
really
you.
Hope your husband enjoys it too.
Yeah, I hope
It's for our anniversary.
Oh,
end of
nice.
This month, so.
That's the best. Great.
That is, yeah. Aw, well, thanks so much for sharing that, Kimberly. Yeah. Yeah, that was Kimberly Gibson Tran with My Husband Says All the Stars We See Are Dead.
That's great.
That is, yeah. Okay, yeah, great poems tonight.
Yeah,
I really liking the variety, too.
Yeah, really,
there's funny ones, there's serious ones. It's all
this is great.
Yeah, let's go to Matt Joseph next.
Hey, guys. I'll say it, though. Can you hear me?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, we hear you. Great
Awesome.
to see you. Yeah.
Hey, I have to start with just a quick thing. So I submitted on a lark 2 poems to the Rattle Critique. I'm not able to make it because of my work. And it was a total lark. And I was like, isn't that funny? What a funny thing to do. And then I logged in on Sunday just to take a look at March 7th. And I was like, oh, sweet Jesus. They're actually a critique. So it was
that's a great reminder that I forgot to tell everybody.
It was the most terrifying and wonderful 20 minutes. So just had to thank you guys for that. So that was just kind of an oh shit moment, but that was great. So
well, thanks so much.
Thanks
they're
so
great,
much.
good poems. A lot to talk about. Yeah.
That's good. Thanks. All right. So my poem's title is, I love this prompt, by the way. My poem's title is Chit Chat. Next week's going to be a scorcher as we fill our sky with toxic ghosts of Triassic and Cretaceous days gone by, while the atmosphere's oven door seals tight and another lonely Sierra town burns to ash and ember. It looks like it might rain. For months, the Russian River filling far beyond its woody banks and hippie shacks, muddy waters rising as we cling to our deflated hope that next year might be different. And how about those warriors? Cobbling together chicken wire drones and duct tape missiles to defend their shelters and their children, their Kherson, Luhansk, and Donetsk from the arthritic grasp of a mad czar's jealous border. I love watching the Great British Baking Show. Rather than standing witness to my country devouring its own organs, instead of sitting Shiva for my dream of who I thought we were, because it's easier than running naked in the street while screaming. The family's doing well, thanks. And though they've left the building, I still can hear my children's footsteps falling down each day's quiet corridor. And even if the hours sometimes feel like they could be our last, my wife and I remain each other's first and only lover.
Oh, yeah, what a sweet turn at the end there.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we have funny ones, sweet ones, just a great crop of poems tonight.
And a great British Bake Off shout out, which I personally appreciate as well.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Yeah, it's Matt Joseph with Chit Chat. Let's go to Steve Horrell next.
Okay, slow to unmute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I clicked the wrong button for a second, so I didn't do the request to unmute. in time. It's all my fault.
Yeah.
But thanks. Great to have you here,
Well,
Steve.
I clicked the wrong button here too. Anyway, so I have a couple of quick comments. I know this takes me 2 minutes to read, so I didn't write poems for decades, right?
Mhm.
What I would sometimes do was, if I would just scribble notes on some kind of a vignette, something that happened, right? So I dredged this out of that past. And also, there's a word in here because I ran into problems with a word in the past. I read on Rattle about the dugout, and I think Tim thought I was playing baseball, but anyway, it was an irrigation ditch. In this poem, there's a word called braces. So this is a visual aid. They this is what braces are in the poem. Suspenders.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is called Getting the 45-gallon drum filled at the Gulf bulk station just before closing time. Standing in my work clothes, logging pants, braces, red plaid shirt, typical stuff. Wood chips and fir needles down my back and stuck in my hair, tired, stinking of oil and chainsaw exhaust. Great summer I'm having. He's standing there waiting, an old guy. You can see he's just waiting. Must be retired. He looks tired. Howdy, he says. Where are you from? Merville. Oh, yeah? Logging or farming? Looking me up and down, answering his own question. Spacing work, spacing job, forestry work. Eh? Thinning the small trees out, like thinning vegetables. What are you hauling them out with, a skidder? No, they're too little, not even pecker poles. Just leaving them. Not burning them or anything? No. The conversation slows to an even more savorable pace. We're both looking at a point that hangs out of focus somewhere in front of us. We're both smiling friendly like, and I realize I've got my thumbs in my braces. Did you log up there? I said, flicking a thumb towards the mountains. Oh, yeah, I used to, all over, but no, not now, he said, his eyes going slightly more out of focus, going somewhere, walking the logs, being careful about legs, trying not to be too haywire before they shut her down for snow, the noise of the rigging, the rain hard biting at the face, the whistle blowing and blowing and blowing. A cool wind comes down off the mountains. By this time, they'd got my drum filled, locking the place up. Gotta go now, I said. He seemed rooted to the ground, his eyes frozen in another place, another time. He sighed, squinted up at the mountains, spat a shred of tobacco off the tip of his tongue. Oh, yeah, all over. He turned, walked away, right hip rising and falling like a piston.
Yeah, really great details on that anecdote. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And the braces really helped too. That I would have thought you were putting your thumb in your mouth. Or something.
I know.
So
Why does he have his finger in his mouth? He's got his thumb in his braces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
I figured I got the small talk down. I don't know about the rest.
Yeah, that was really entertaining. Thanks for sharing that, Steve.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And that was Steve Horrell with Getting the 45-gallon drum filled at the Gulf bulk station. Yeah, I love all the little words there that I don't know, all the nuanced, jargon. It's always fun. All right, let's go to Dennis Usden next.
Unmute. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes, I can, hi. Yeah, great to see you.
I'm probably behind or something because this poem was to the prompt that was related to carrying a heavy weight. And so just let you know.
Yeah, well, I didn't update the page.
Oh, okay.
So with all the website stuff, so it's not really your fault. I only realized this morning that I still had last week's up, so I was wondering if anybody would do that. So don't feel bad.
I did it.
I mean, there's 3 pages. I updated 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
But anybody who looks at the 3rd, and I thought I did, but anyway.
The name of this poem is Up, Down. I am 12 years old in 1958, carrying 60 pounds of extra weight. My father tells me I look like a tackle for the New York Giants. My mother says I'm fat. The skinny doctor turns his head away from me. You only need to lose 50 pounds. Then you won't be sweating all the time. The cure is in glass-caged bins, silos 5 feet high, full of colored capsules stacked wall to wall. My mom buys the orange ones for me, the red or yellow not strong enough. Thoughts racing. I zoom around the house. The vacuum can't keep up. 200 pages of Don Quixote in 30 minutes. Face flush after run. Yell in class. Teacher whispers, shut up. Now, slinking down, in bed, sob. Exhausted into sadness, unbelievable heaviness of my being. Eyes drooping. Teacher lifts my head off the desk. F in conduct. I hate these drugs. I hate my obese self more.
Yeah, all right. Authentic poem. Thanks so much for sharing that, Dennis. Yeah, that was Up Down by Dennis Usden. Thanks. Yeah. All right. And and that was the last week's prompt, which you can still submit, we should say. You know, that's how it works. We share the poems on the current one, but the submission deadline is always the end of the month,
Right.
and so that's one of the March poems. So if you like that prompt and you didn't write one yet, go ahead and write one.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and let's go to Mary Lisa D. Diminishes, who really kindly always comes in late, so that she's like heading up the end of the show. Everybody else probably waiting and hoping to get to them, and Lisa's like letting everybody ahead in line, like the sweetest person
because
that she
is so sweet.
I know, it's true. So how you doing, Mary Lisa?
That's sweet. Thank you. I don't mind. I'm a night person anyway. It's all good. Yeah. I enjoy listening to everybody else so much. Just really happy to be here. And thank you again for the prompts because, geez, I've been writing almost a poem a week, which is incredible, right?
You end up with a book a year if you do that.
Absolutely, right? If they're good enough. So, and yeah, it's very stimulating for my mind.
Well, definitely. Yeah, that's always what we hope for and why poetry is so valuable. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Okay, here I go. No sudden move. Our poet friend tells us I like long walks at 3 or 4 in the morning. Goes from one island to another, forming words into poems with his headphones on, along the docks and bays, where a cop stopped him once. First 2 cars, then 5, because the only ID he could show was from his phone, where his online poems and a resume floated in a cloud the law refused to recognize. 7 cops total, and hours later, they released him to a dawn cracked open like our mouths as we wowed and woed. And I thought of my dark-skinned son, who takes late-night drives like I do, through that same locale, to eat and write and meet with friends at nearby neon-lit diners with their vinyl-padded window booths, white china coffee cups, maple plus 3 other flavors of syrup, not to mention jukebox music, and the music he chooses while driving to and from where he goes, away or toward home, which frightens me more now that I know how many there are in the world who wish him harm, who will never want him or his kind, their words, not mine, and not God's design, to divide people from people, to break Pangea and live forever after in fear of our neighbors on other islands, groomed for war. Now that I know their discontent, I trust them like animals. Now that I've seen them attack, I stiffen when they near. When they charge and bark, I stop, drop my hand, let them sniff to know I'm no danger, even as I quiver, unsure if they'll lunge or retreat, as they're called by their owners and wrestled to the ground, only to slip from their collars again. I stay still. I'm still not moving, I say. I won't move until you're gone.
Yeah, what a powerful way to go with that poem.
Yeah,
Like, another
definitely.
great one.
And then you had such wonderful, super vivid details in there, like with the diner and everything too. It was I very much got lost in that poem.
Yeah, it definitely did me too.
Yeah.
So did I.
Well, thanks so much, Mary Lisa.
Lisa.
Yeah, always such a pleasure.
Thank you for letting me share my
Thanks.
usually sad poems. I don't know. Okay.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks. Always great to see you.
you.
Yeah.
Good night. Good
Good
night.
night. Yeah, it was Mary Lisa. Diminishes with no sudden moves. And a couple people left. Janet McConaughey has had some microphone issues. I don't know if you want me to read your poem for you, Janet, or maybe they've been solved. She's here on the Zoom, possibly.
I've got a new microphone.
Oh, you do?
Yay, good,
Excellent.
Janet.
Yeah, and
That's
you sound wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is sort of contrarian, but very, very short.
Oh, great. Okay.
I love
I definitely love,
Yep.
we love contrarian
Yeah.
rattles. Long
Yeah.
history of that. Yeah, let's hear it.
The title is Perspective. Neighbors' chat always set me to snooze. Football, Saints, fashion, fishing, chartreuse sparkle beetles? Who cares about Sue's 3 affairs? Now it's comfort, relief from the news.
That's great. Really love. And what is the form? I can't remember.
Limerick.
Limerick. Yeah.
Oh,
That's what I was,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Janet knows a lot about limericks, I've heard. Mhm.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I love all the
I've only written
enjambment in that
3,000.
limerick.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we
3,000.
emailed about this. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, that's really exciting. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that.
That's
I really-
wonderful.
Yeah.
It shows the strength of the form there, too.
Mhm.
The surprise at the end.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Janet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was Janet McConaughey, and it sounded great. And that might be the best microphone of
Yeah, that
anybody.
sounds
That's
really nice.
really rich.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go last but not least to Ted Bernal Guevara. And as always, Ted's got a photo for us. He's got a man with some shoes, and I'm trying to be more mature with my shoe choices, as we talked about. And I don't know if I should wear socks with certain shoes. I'm very confused about that whole thing.
Those are
Judging from this
loafers.
photo, these are loafers. And so apparently no socks with the loafers, or is this making a point?
That's not a look that I'm looking
It's
for.
not a look that you're looking
You the coffee. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
Loafers,
do.
no shoes, and like crop skinny jeans.
Yeah, you just point me to what to wear, and I just
Okay,
don't
that's
care.
the deal.
But anyway, but like those sneakers with no soles, which are nice. But I probably shouldn't just wear those all the time.
No, you should not.
Anyway, okay. So that's the photo with some loafers from Ted, and let's see what his poem is. Confessions in Customer Service. There's some small talk there, that's for sure. The day starts out with, "How may I help you?" which ricochets to under-the-breath whisper, "Get out of my face." I usually regress from here and acknowledge that the response is 1 in 1,000 occurring in this store, but I am well equipped from my many years of asshole servicing. I focus on the zero-turn tractor and say, "And what a lovely face it is," without losing a beat. He laughs, no overtone of sexual advance, but I'm game. There are rules for that, my voice knows, armed with just the right pinch of sarcasm and a dab of "fuck you if you don't." He gets it, and I feel engaged. His body language says, "I'm going to buy, but not from you, apron-wearing skinny ass." The stocks may be plummeting, but his torso is sculpted by Gold's Gym and not by Pushmo, and he needs the yellow luster of the tractor to complete his immaculate garage. The fairy tales they bring in here. So onward, I went with a bolder face, thinking, what can he do? Smack me in the face with his Nautica cologne? He needs this. Has yet to score a wife. He needs accessory balls for that. He doesn't belong to a yacht club. No sea in 40 miles. So fine carpet like grass it is. Leave me alone. The face still contorts. The moment I see no socks, I write up a call tag for $4,995 for him to bring up the front. No commission for me. The half hour killed is my prize. Oh, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. That's Confessions in Customer Service, and I guess I should not go with the no socks.
No.
And
Ted
loafers
agrees
look.
with me.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Ted. It is always fun. So that's a small talk gone big poem. And that's going to wrap up. Let me make sure I got to everybody who's here on the Zoom. Yep, I did. So that's going to wrap up the prompt lines for tonight. Now, we're going to make a change possibly, because I was bemoaning a little bit the fact that I was looking through all the Psych-Who, and the fact that they all only work kind of with the story. They're always like making fun of the story usually. And I'm getting a little cynical and sort of it's harder to find things that are surprising or interesting in the science news. I'm kind of like, so much is like politically motivated, or like so much is bad science, and I just get tired of that. So,
well, you've also written a few of them.
Yeah, and I'm so instead of an
Hundreds.
article, Katie said, why don't you just do haiku? And then you have like haiku, and I was thinking, it's nice, to have haiku. So I may bring back the daily haiku.
Yeah.
And close just with a closing coup instead of a saiku. And we'll see how that
Closing
goes.
coup is so cute.
Yeah, we'll see. So so
Believe
I
in it.
try to find one every day, and we'll write a haiku every day, and then share one every week at the end of the show. And so we were swimming. We opened up the pool today, and we're swimming with the kids. And this is a little haiku that I thought of here. Pollen clinging at the edge of the pool, her floaties.
Aww.
There we go. Pollen clinging at the edge of the pool, her floaties. That is the coup for the week.
Charlotte influenced, perhaps.
Definitely, yeah.
The only kid in floaties.
Yeah, but she was very cute. I mean, she is bold going through that water.
She is.
So, anyway, yeah, everybody growing up. So that is the coup for this week, and that's the show for this week. Now, next week's prompt on the Rattlecast is going to be what, Katie Dozier?
Let's see.
Do you have it?
I don't know why I always feel like if I don't
put on the
immediately shout it out, that people are going to think I don't know what it is. Okay.
Okay.
Write an ekphrastic poem based on a work of art by an artist that shares your first or last name.
Yeah. So
I see you edited that one slightly.
I did, because really,
you put a typo into it, and
did I?
Yeah, and then and or
that shares.
But we didn't like the and or.
Well, I figure the and is sort of implied, so it makes it a little simpler. Like,
okay.
If you have or, you also have and. It's an if-then
That's
conditional
fair.
statement.
That's
so
fair.
just the logic of it.
Just wanted
is
people to go
unnecessary.
big with how much of your name can you share with an artist.
Well, I think you're just bragging because you have.
I came with a prompt and then immediately was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then I felt like I was cheating on my own prompt.
well,
so
there
you
you
can't
go.
ruin it till
Well,
next week.
I don't know what I'm doing. So.
Okay. But anyway, I think it'll be fun to kind of, I don't know, you Google your own name and you're like, who's an artist? And then you find a piece of art and you have a connection with them, and then write an ekphrastic poem. If you want to hear more talk about ekphrastic poem beyond tonight's amazing interview where there was so much discussion on it, we did talk about it on the Poetry Space also, and the concept of taking the ekphrastic poem where you start as a starting point, but we want to of course do so much more than just describe the painting.
How long ago was that? Was that a while ago? Was that way back when it was actually a space?
And when it was actually a Twitter space before it became a podcast. Yeah.
Well, interesting.
I
Well,
think.
go back and look at
what
that.
if we didn't even do that episode? Now I'm doubting myself.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Oh
hard to tell.
gosh,
We have so
we have
many
almost
episodes
100 episodes of the Poetry
of that,
Space
and 300 episodes here.
A lot of
and
episodes.
We have 400 critiques of the weeks. So anyway, thanks everybody for doing that. That's me, the prompt. Write an ekphrastic poem based on a work of art by an artist that shares your first or last name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that was the prompt. And the guest next week is going to be Tiana Clark. So Tiana is the winner of, I think, the 2015 Rattle Poetry Prize for Equilibrium. Then that became a chapbook by Bull City Press. Then she had a wonderful book come out later with a big press, I can't remember who. And then her second book is now out, Scorched Earth. And it's just released this March. So she's going to be the guest. Tiana Clark, Sunday, March 23rd, Rattlecast 286. The regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope to figure out who the artist you're related to by name for the prompt. And,
you may know mine.
Yeah, well, happy week in the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.